Yeah, I have absolutely no clue what I'm gonna say. Let's just roll with it. This is a video about the tracked music for Time Tripper. Because there's some tricks and things I use along the way that I thought might be interesting, especially if you're kind of new to the whole track music thing, or maybe if you just like behind the scenes shit or technical shit. I don't know. I don't know why I'm making this, but anyways, so what you see up there is OpenMPT. This was previously ModPlug Tracker. I've been using it for over 20 years. It's pretty old. And over the course of those 20 years, I've picked up a lot of like little tricks and whatnot. So when I use tracker music, the reason I use it, aside from me just knowing trackers, like, or in specific OpenMPT a lot, is because I really enjoy things that include like the whole package and doesn't like rely on anything else. Tracker music is really cool because it's like you get not just the sequencing data, but you also get the samples and the instrument information, if applicable, based on the format. It's all kind of like right there in this neat little package. And that's cool. And it also means you get to optimize it. And I love optimizing shit. And you're going to see a lot of that throughout this. All right. So here I've got the title music. This piece relies on a lot of like really, really big samples. Like you can see, I was going to say you can see, but it's like 25 kilobytes. How big is that? How big is that one? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So, okay. So this one's split into a couple different samples. Like, so you got this. Now, you're already thinking, like, what the hell's going on here? So I'm, like, queuing these in sequence, and the reason it does that loop on the end is to, like, close any gaps that might be there. Also to, like, just trim off a few bytes, if possible, you know, because you don't need all of that at the end. You can just have it, like, bounce back and, you know, save a few bytes of samples that way. I don't think there's anything particularly mind-blowing going on in this one. So this is actually the beginning of a trick I use a lot. So this sample loops, and it also has an instrument envelope, meaning, so here I'm defining the volume over the time that it plays. So it starts loud and then gets quiet, and as a result, so it just trails off like an echo. But you of course aren't storing all that data that way, right? You know, you just store this huge like echoing sample, and you don't even have to sequence the echo. It's like right there, so you can just play it. Cool. It's easy. It works. Let's see what else we got. Just some breaks. Okay, so the vocals in this do this cool thing where they like trail off filtered, and that's also done with an instrument definition where I'm defining the envelope, the amplitude envelope, the panning envelope, and the filter envelope. Impulse Tracker has filters. Oh, by the way, this is an Impulse Tracker format. It's just an older tracker format. I am not working in the what do you want to call it? The Impulse Tracker specifications, in that I'm using stereo samples, and Impulse Tracker technically doesn't support that, but ModPlug broke that rule, and now just everybody does it that way. So, or not everybody, or a lot of people, but anyways. So yeah, let's take a look at this again. So you want that to do all sorts of cool shit. You just use these envelopes, and like, so here again, here's the filter, and up here I'm defining how like resonant the filter is. You can do that. I'm also applying a bit of a random variation to the pan. So every time it plays, it'll be like panned slightly differently. But anyways, so between the filter envelope and the panning envelope, which actually has a loop point here and here. So after it gets to this, so it kind of trails off, bouncing back and forth. And the envelopes, the volume envelope's like the same way. Right? And since these are so like crunchy, you can store them at a pretty, this could probably be even lower. And they're sort of like 8-bit mono. I'm in this whole project, I tried to get things like as small as possible, like without losing too much quality. Cause that's fun. It's a lot of fun. I realistically didn't have to, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yo, the beats are strong.
So again, same idea on this one.
Yo, the beats are strong.
Now this sample, this shows up in another track as well. It shows up in Time Tripping for map 6. You can hear I've actually got like two similar kind of like really gritty 3x3 basses. And over here, you can hear it like in the actual song. So you can hear it's like increasing in filter over time. That's this command here, O50. So you're defining an offset of where it starts playing the sample. So you can say like here. And you can see as I scroll over it, you can see down here it shows us the offset. So if I want to start playing from there, I enter O0D, O3D. You see what I mean? So you can have this like resonant sample that like gradually decays over time and skip through it. This is an old trick. This is nothing like special. It's just, it shows up a few times in this project. And it might be worth pointing out. Some people might not know about it. Who knows? I don't think there's anything else in this file. Cool. Now let's move on to the next one. Okay, so here is whatever the fuck it's called. Living to See It for C1M1. I think it's a couple decent tricks in this one. Here's one of the sounds that play at like the start of the song, and I just play them like really slow. And I have, of course, a panning envelope, a filter envelope, so it gradually filters in. You know, all the basic stuff we've been talking about already. So that's just this sound here. It's again pretty low fidelity. I mean, like this could be a lot lower again, but it's 8-bit, and that's what counts, I guess. Let's see. Another like similar idea here. We're bringing in the filter and the volume over time. And when you let go, it like drops back off. Okay, I use these samples like several times over the course of the entire soundtrack. They are like 808s from my sound canvas, Roland Sound Can, which is like a Rompler, MIDI Rompler type deal. But anyways, so this sounds dumb. Something I usually want in a lot of this like tracked music is I want like really big reverb, like stereo reverb on fucking everything. I love that. The issue is that like in tracked music, of course, it's like you don't just get to drop in a VST. You can't do that because then you have to distribute like the VST in a way to point to it and this and that. And no, the whole point is you're including like everything in the tracker file, right? And also VSTs aren't even a thing in Impulse Tracker. So in this case, we have this sample where it loops this part of the reverb tail, right? And then we just drop a volume envelope on it. And there we go. You don't really hear that like looping quality as much in the actual track. You know, so it works, you know, gets the job done. And I use this trick, like I said, like pretty constantly. There it is again, this time on a kick drum. And on a hat. So this one, yeah, and they're 8-bit as well. I don't think the kick is because, yeah, the kick is a 16-bit sample, because if you crush the kick, you hear we've introduced a lot of that, the dithering, the 8-bit dithering, and we don't want that on the kick in particular. So since the kick has not too much high frequency information, we can also store it pretty low, as opposed to the hat, which is like we need a lot of high frequency information, but since it's white noise, we can store in 8-bit. Same with this. Don't have to store too high, but still a decent amount. And why is it? Oh, you can't even actually see those fucking pop-ups. When you right click on this, you get a pop-up where it says like convert to 8-bit, convert to 16-bit. Thanks OBS. But anyways, for some reason that one is 16-bit. I made a mistake. But if I convert this, you can hear it didn't get that much noisier. It should have been like that, because as it stands, that sample takes up 54K. That's fucking huge. Okay, there. Now it's 27K. Wow, what huge improvement. Of course it halves it because 8-bit, 16-bit, it's half. But anyways, let's move on. Here's a big fat pad from the Roland JB1080. I do a couple things with this. One is just use it as a pad, and the other is not that. You didn't hear that. Where is the other one? Yeah, here we go. So I'm referencing the same sample, so we don't have to store the same sample twice. That's always nice. So here, I'm just like looping this little like filter envelope. And when I use this in the actual track, I'm not just using that, I'm also using the filter commands, so we get even more, what do you want to say, modulation? pretty cool for like, you know, getting a lot of mileage out of this, which is how big? It's pretty big, 173K, because it's stereo and like long. But when you use a sample that big, you get your mileage out of it, you know. Okay, here's that trick I was talking about in the title theme, where I do like the echo. This time I actually have an explicitly stereo echo instead of just like looping the entire sample. And not only that, but if we zoom into the start, you can see these dotted lines. This is called a sustain. So if you hold the note, it holds on that part. And when you let go, it'll go out and then, oops, it'll go out to here. And then I have another loop here. So you have a sustain loop and then you have a regular loop. You can see they're defined up here, the start and end point in samples. And of course that has its own envelope attached to it. In this case, we're using, oh man, there's even more sustain and loop stuff going on here. So on the main envelope, we have a sustain. We actually like sweep up a little bit, so it's a little less punchy coming in, and then we drop off after the sustain is done. On the panning, we're sustaining center, and then the entire thing, you can see the point over here, the entire thing gets looped when we let go. So we get even more stereo modulation on top of what's already in the sample. You know, very pretty for a this should be a pretty small file, 27K, yeah. And if we were willing to like deal with the 8-bit dithering, we're talking like 10 something K. And we could also make it like lower frequency, but yeah. Okay, so here's the bulk of the song in terms of like storage size. So these pads were recorded from, of course, the Roland JV1080, which I love to death. And yeah, they're just like, I would play the pad on like a MIDI controller and record them into Gold Wave and then bring them in here and loop them. Looping samples used to be a lot harder because you didn't have like tools to make it so seamless, but now the absolute mad lads working on OpenMPT have this thing where like you can select a loop and it's like, that sounds shit. Of course it does. When you click this thing, you can't see it. You get like a little crossfade envelope where you set like how long it should crossfade, and then like you get this. That's fucking incredible. I wish I had that like 15, even 10 years ago. I don't know when it showed up actually, but I feel like it wasn't 10 years ago. It was like older than that. Or sorry, newer than that. But yeah, wish I used to have that. Previously, you would have to like find the exact loop point where it doesn't click, or like loop it manually prior. And either way you slice it, it was a bit of a pain. But yeah, there's that. And so I did that with a bunch of chords here. And these all have the same volume envelope on them, so you can just... So they sound nice that way. Here's a drum break that I did, or I shouldn't say break, it's some whack-ass drum loop. I play it pretty slow in the actual track. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just a sample from like a sample CD. Same with this one. Here's this Reese sample. And again, kind of an envelope going on it. But how I use this one is over here. Wait, where is it? Here it is, I think. Yes, so channel 9 and 10. So I get this like, because of course I don't want to spend like all those kilobytes on a stereo Reese sample. I want it to be just like done in here. So what I do is if I take away these E01, so what this is this is a portamento down. So I take them away, we're mono, I put them on. So what it's doing is when the note starts, it pitch shifts it down slightly. So we get this kind of fat stereo detune. I probably could have done it like even less. Like I probably could have done like a fine -6 or something. But yeah, you get the idea, right? I'm sure you get the idea. That's a great way to like just fatten up your otherwise very not fat samples. This is a sample of a kekak, which is a really... I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, by the way, which is a really just like fantastic chant/dance. And I'm playing it back really, really slow, with like some filtering, I think. Yeah. I mostly just wanted the rhythmic content of it, and the like stereo width that it brings. But yeah. That's from Club Doom on PlayStation. It's a real good zap. This is the Metroid Prime sound. This is from a sample CD called Uncivilized Rhythms, I think it's called. It's goofball as hell. Lots of weird kind of like industrial-ish drum loops on it. It's a good sound. It's a damn good sound, and a very intentional allusion to Metroid Prime in this case. As you can hear, I actually have one of the synths here. I think this is from an EMU. Oh shit, I wouldn't actually be able to tell you. I totally forget, but again, just using the envelope to make it trail off and sound nice. Now let's get the hell out of this song, because there's other shit. There's so much shit to talk about. There's not actually. I don't have to talk about any of this, but I'm doing it anyways. Let's skip the results because there's nothing to like really see there. I also doubt there's much to see in the binding, but let's take a look anyways. Yeah, there's not a lot going on here. Let's go through the sounds. So another sound from the Roland JV1080, which I just use constantly on this project. It's just good sounds and really simple volume envelope just to, you know, ease those sounds in and out as you use them and all that. Would not be able to tell you where this sample comes from at all. Yeah, no idea. Also not sure on this organ. I thought I would be sure on this one, but that doesn't sound like the Sound Canvas organ. Yeah, I really do not know. But again, with these volume envelopes, we've got this like little... Let me get out of the fucking way. Oh, okay, you can see down here, right over here. Oh man, look at that fucking hand tracking. Anyways, yeah, this little like hump here, just to do kind of like a gated echo sound. Not like truly gated, but... Or sorry, gated reverb almost. Now, interestingly, there's no reverb on this sample. There's no tail or anything. It's just this loop point. But by bringing it back in really quietly and then fading it out, we kind of get the idea that it's reverb. It also helps that I'm doing the panning thing once the note like trails off. That helps kind of just like sell the fact that it's reverb and not just the sample continuing. It's just a bunch of like break samples from here on out. Oh yeah, crashes. A great way to just like make those crashes widen up is do the whole stereo echo like sample loop trick. So I think the sample comes from one of my resource packs. Wouldn't be able to tell you which one because I've done this like a million times, but same thing as I've done a million other times. Okay, so these samples actually come from Megafauna, from my latest Kit Caliber release. They're just wound up being really good, useful pad sounds. Oops. They're also where most of the like file size on this one comes from because they're huge. They're very, very big samples. Like, how big? 118K, that's huge, man. This is a sine wave. You might have heard one before. Again, same trick with the envelopes. Now, since it's a simple wave like that, it doesn't sound quite like reverb, but in the mix, it gets the job done, you know? And here's a slightly harder sine wave. I went in and just like, you know, fucking art. Made some fucking art here. This one, same idea. As you can see, this one's much, much, much louder. It trails off slightly differently in the mix as a result. You get the idea. Let's get out of this track. Next is Umbra's Warm Bosom. Let me look for the file here. There we go. Oh, okay. Now we're getting into the advanced trickery. Here's the organ. This is really, really simple sample. I don't know where it came from. It's just a like waveform. This could have been a single cycle. What was I doing here? I could have like... I could... Why didn't I do that? I could I could have made it like so much smaller. How big is it right now? It's currently 3 kilobytes. I could have made it 225 bytes. Whatever, man. See, and it sounds the fucking same. All right, whatever. Anyways, so now you might notice something weird happening where like the echo for this isn't sequenced anywhere. Where is it? Where's the echo? Because in tracker music, typically you'll like copy the sequence to another channel, bump it a few, lines down and reduce the volume, and you've got your echo. Something like, I was about to do it with this, but you wouldn't really be able to hear it, but oops. Something like that. But here, it's a great trick. So since I always know this note is going to stop on an 8th note, I can do a little trick with the volume envelope where, yeah, so after you release, it goes on, it goes off, on, off, and on the offs, you can see these little trails for that kind of like reverb between the echo sound. So if you just play this normally, the echo doesn't really like, you aren't really sold on it because of the way it's timed. But since I know it's always going to be timed the same way, it works well enough in the actual track. Right? The other thing I'm doing is it's a little random pan on it. Even though these channels are panned out like left and right, having them shift around a little bit I think is interesting. Yes, it introduces the element of like something potentially not intentional happening, but whatever. What else we got here? We got just some like breaks, nothing too fancy going on here. Over the course of these patterns here, you can actually see if I scroll through them, it makes a lot of sense, like what's going on. Over the course of the patterns, I'm gradually phasing them. So I'm like, think like some Steve Reich type shit where it's like, okay, now this one is an 1/8 later. Now both of those are an 1/8 later than that. Now these are an 1/8 later. This one started to wrap around. Now they're all like, yeah, you see what I mean? I don't know what the fuck I would, oh yeah, I guess that's still an 1/8 later, but yeah. Yeah, so it's just a gradual phase where they all get shifted off 1/8 note each time. The bass is just like some big fat like that's not it. Where is it? Yeah. Absolutely enormous sample. Yeah, like 128K. It's big. But it carries that part of the track, so you gotta have it. I think it's from a Meth Lab sample pack. I'm not 100% on that, but I would believe it. Later in the track, we've got like these like bell sounds, which are, again, with the echo trick, we're repeating part of the sample. That pretty much closes it out on tricks going on in this one, aside from like just the weird time signatures, which were chosen arbitrarily. If you look at the MIDI for this, at one point, I think it goes into like 13/16, just because I was trying to line up the MIDI properly. When I'm working with trackers, I don't think about time signature. I just kind of end a pattern when it feels like, cool, I can end it there. So as a result, sometimes I get these really wonky things or something where a pattern will be like in 4/4, the next one will be in like 7/8, and the next one's in like 19/16 or something like that. It's just kind of wherever I feel like it should end. Let's move on. All right, we're getting to the good stuff now. This one's pretty unexciting technically. This is the Forever Plane, which is like the theme kind of. Whoa, okay. Oops. Okay. So here, like, I'm using a lot of the same tricks again here on this organ. This, I think this is sampled from a sound canvas. I think. Wow. Hand. I think this was sampled from Sound Canvas. Sorry, I keep selecting like pieces of it. So again, the trick where we like sustain a little bit and then loop the reverb. Now you can hear on the higher ones, you can kind of hear that like that loop point. Thankfully, if there's a lot going on in the mix, it's like kind of negligible, kind of. Beyond that, now there's just basses. Breaks. Oh, here's the first instance of a multi-sampled instrument. Impulse Tracker lets you do this thing with instruments where that, oh right, it starts higher, I think. Yeah, where you can see over here, like this range to this range uses sample 18, this range to this range 19, then 20. So you can have your like, you know, you can have different samples per octave or per note even. So you can, you know, avoid the kind of just like one sample pitch shifted to everything sound. These, I think, come from a Contact library. I forget which one. I think it's just called Concert Harp. I'm totally spacing on it. I haven't used it since I had to open it to like get these sounds. But anyways, so ignore that. So you can hear these are pretty like janky samples on their own. These aren't how they sound in the library, by the way. No shade on the library. It's a really good library. I've just trimmed them down to like the bare essential attack and then sustain points. Over here is like the sustain of the harp. This is all you need beyond the attack to evoke the sound of the harp. And I've done that for 3 samples, and I've kept them stereo. And again, same trick with the volume envelope, just letting it trail off. That's it. There's nothing else interesting going on there. It's just a damn good song. I'm really happy with that one. Next one is also, unfortunately, very uninteresting. So this intro, or this like phrase here, is quoted from Gillian's apartment from Snatcher on the Mega CD. It was what I was listening to while I was making the map, and I was like, that's too good to not use for this map. It's weird and contemplative. There's absolutely nothing new or fancy going on in here. It's the exact same tricks all the way. Wow, that's very high. So you could hear just doing this thing again where we hold the reverb tail, you know. Okay. I guess the interesting thing is the way I'm doing the Steve Reich thing again, where I like phase parts of it. So like I'll gradually offset parts of it until at this point here, you can see there's like these like note delays because they start getting shifted like within the bar they're on, but I can't move them within the bar, so use note delays. A lot of people that work with trackers will work at a much higher speed, like scroll speed, so they have more like more immediate like access to the details, so you can just fit more stuff and do more detailed work. I've always been prone to like tracking very slow and instead using things like note delays. I don't know why. I think it's just habit from the old days, as it were. But yeah, nothing particularly interesting going on with that track. All right, here's Time Tripping. This one's got some neat stuff going on. Where's that really loud sound? I gotta watch out. There's a really loud sound in here. I think that's it. Okay, yeah, that's it. Okay, so that's just one of the other samples, like super distorted. You don't actually hear it this way in the song ever. You hear it like this. You can see this is such a long envelope. It doesn't even like fit. So we've got that. And a pitch envelope instead of filter. This one here, you can do pitch or filter, not both. It's one or the other. Welcome to limitations. So I'm controlling pitch here. So hold on, here it comes. Here it comes. All right, and in the actual piece, since I can't like do the filter at the same time, I'm using these commands here to filter it as well. So we get this like big sweep. Now the great thing about this is this sample only takes up like 8 kilobytes. So we get this like huge like big sweep sound and just 8 kilobytes of fucking garbage and noise. You can make that white noise and you'd get the same kind of like effect. So here it is with the filter. So we're just gradually increasing the filter. And at the end, it'll like sweep back down. Yeah, there you go. That's the trick. Over here, we've got these sounds. So I'm doing this little like volume 16, then volume increase, volume 16, volume increase to do that like side chaining effect, the pumping effect. And those samples, yeah, let's go through the samples. Let's see what we got. Drums. So we're using a bidirectional loop to kind of get it to the wow, wow, wow sound. This is also from the Roland JV1080, just a couple very big chords. I think that's from, I totally forget the guy's name. Oh my God, I'm spacing on it. Some guy put together a wonderful pack of just Roland JV1080 patches, and I use it all the time. But that's the sound. Now we've also got these, which are also they're from the Roland JV1080 expansion card called, I think it's called Voices. So these don't have anything fancy going on. You've seen this envelope before in like pads and things like that. Now this was reused on the title screen. The title screen music was done after this, so I was able to incorporate other elements from the soundtrack back into that more easily. So that sound is back. This sample is also from the Roland JV1080, again, Voices, I think it's called, expansion card. Really crunchy, really low fidelity, but you can get away with it, especially because we're like immediately dropping off after that, and you don't really hear the noise in the mix so much. Mellotron choir. Some clocks. I really like this one. This is a... Oh, what is the piano actually from? I want to say it's Addictive Keys. Sampled from Addictive Keys, like a multi-sampled piano. Not that one. But it was put through like a lot of like compression and filtering and whatnot to kind of like give it this worn sound. We don't cover too much of the piano here, just like an octave or so. So just enough to kind of have it sound like realistic, and not just like one pitch shifted sound. I really wanted the sound of like, the piano at the end of Closer by Nine Inch Nails, or the piano at the end of every Nine Inch Nails song that does the like really like. That I wanted that sound. It's a great sound. Now, in the actual piece, that's not the only way it's being used. I'm using these commands every now and again. The H command, which is vibrato, with varying amounts of it. And by just inserting that at random points throughout, you get this kind of like tape warp effect. Think of it actually, I guess, like wow or flutter or something like that. You see, like that. Now over there, we're actually like pitch shifting as well. This one here, since I'm doing a portamento down before the next note, that portamento down actually carries into the decay or the release of the note after that. So you get this kind of like detuned thing in the background. It's a really cool sound. So great trick, I think, and you can do it for very, very, very small. Like, this piano takes up all of like maybe maybe 100K. So wait, that's like 28 through. Hold on, like maybe under 100K. And I think it's a great sounding piano. Really evocative of. I'm just going to say evocative and leave it at that. What else we got here? It's a bell tree. Okay. There's that loud sound. Don't listen to that. It's just a fucking... That's a square wave. Oh! Yeah, I've got two square waves. Here's the thing. Sometimes you gotta have two copies of something because you see this is like a difference in like the frequency. You see that? By 100 hertz. So they sound the same. I'm using them towards the end of the piece. So you can see I've got one here and one over here, but when you play them both at the same time, oh yeah, they have like envelopes as hell, don't they? They both have a volume envelope and a filter envelope. And when you play them both at the same time, you get this nice kind of chorused, almost like Lyle Mays, rest in peace, Lyle Mays kind of keyboard sound. Now the other trick that I'm using on these here is that at the start of this, you can see these commands up here. I'm setting the filter for every channel. So this one's completely open, this one's pretty low, and this one's really low. So that means on the echoes, they get like gradually darker. Another good effect for cheap. These instruments combined is like less than a kilobyte, and you get just like, yeah, tons of use out of those. What the hell's that? Oh, that's the rap.
Check it out. Well, it's the lyrical paragraphs. Your tracks make me laugh.
Put on the microphone. You get past mad. Okay, anyways, that's from Masterbit's Rhapsody 2, I think. Absolutely goofball sample CD or vocal track CD that you have heard a million times in your life if you play video games. Japanese video game music producers fucking love this CD in the 90s. It's all over everything. This one in particular, the first time I ever heard this was in Einhander during the boss theme, and I've been addicted to it ever since. They went so much that when I like heard the sample as it was, I was like blown away by how much I hated it, because it's not at all processed the way it is in Einhander. So I like recreated the processing on it on Einhander, like here, like the kind of like radio sound and the higher pitch and all sorts of other things. And that's how you hear it here.
Check it out.
This sample's fucking huge. It's 173K. It's most of the project. That said, it's at a very low rate. Again, that like radio filtering really helps you get away with that, especially since we're only using, in Time Tripper, we're only using linear sample interpolation, not like Gaussian or something like that, which can sound really like muffled.
Check it out.
So we can still get that like high end from the aliasing of the sample, which is a good thing. And of course, since I compressed it to shit, like psychoacoustic compression, like we're talking crunched the shit out of it, we can get away with it being 8-bit without having a ton of dithering in it.
Check it out. Well, it's the lyrical paragraphs. Your tracks make me laugh.
Yep. All right, next is... Oh, this one probably has my favorite trick of the bunch. Yeah, this is To Gently Cradle. So these opening samples, of course, from Mild und Lees. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's a Paul Lansky piece from like the 70s. Oh, I'm really, really not doing well with this, but you'll have to forgive me. From the 70s or something like that. So you probably know these from Idiotech by Radiohead. They also sampled the same piece. It's an amazing piece of music. I highly recommend listening to it. Not Idiotech. I mean, that's also very, very good. I love that. But Mild und Lees or whatever by Paul Lansky is really, really fucking cool. So these are a bunch of like very, very small samples from that piece of music. Again, wanted to make them as small as possible while still maintaining what they sound like. So that one's pretty beefy. And again, these just have real basic envelopes on them, so we can like cycle through them and have them fade into each other, so to speak. Like it almost sounds like the original piece at this point because of that, like just such a simple trick. And they're tiny samples, like most of them single-digit kilobytes. Speaking of tiny samples, not that. Not that, that's the big one. Here we go. So we've got two organs in this one. This is the Sound Canvas 88 Hammond, I think. Really, really like this sound. It was a different one originally, but when I ported this song to MIDI for the alternate version of the soundtrack, I heard this organ. I was just like, that's fucking beautiful. And I had to bring it back over to this version. So I sampled it and did the like sustain and release trick. And I think, there's just some breaks. Yeah, and we've got another organ. Don't know where this one comes from. Kind of a shitty percussive organ sound. So how are we using these? I get a really lush organ sound out of both of these by rearranging these patterns. By over here, so the organs take up, I think 13 is also, yeah. The organs take up 5 channels on their own because of this trick I'm doing. So I'm using both of the organs at the same time. The lead is, not the harmonies, just the lead is doubled with this percussive organ sound because it's got a like bit of a chorus to it. And I'm panning this one, and we're using, you can't see it, but there's an option called carry envelope. That means over the course of the song, the envelope will keep repeating regardless of whether the note's pressed. So like you can't see it here, but I think if I like, no, that doesn't help even if I play it, but that's what it means. Think of it like a constantly running LFO almost, you know? So I'm using that organ in conjunction with this other one, which again, just volume and panning envelopes. And also on that like main sound canvas organ, I'm doing all of this shit. There's a bunch of shit going on here. So at the start of each note, I'm doing a tone or note portamento. In this case, it's extra fine plus 3. So that makes these slightly different notes to each other. And they're also panned out left and right. On top of that, we've also got this thing here, this like R28. So what this is this is the tremolo command, which is like, you know, volume up and down. And you can see down here that they start to deviate from each other a little bit. Like 48 starts here before it starts over here, you know? And I'll like constantly be doing this thing here where it's like portamento up, portamento up, portamento up, like constantly shifting it against the other one. And this gets this kind of like almost Leslie sound happening. And the idea is the more you do that and the more you introduce varying amounts of this vibrato on one thing and then a different time on the other, you get this like... So there, by gradually doing this stepping of the note upwards, like little by little, it gets like faster and faster, like a Leslie speaker spinning up, and then starting it high and then bringing it back down. This is a down portamento. You close it, you slow it back down. It's pretty like subtle, but I think it adds a lot. As opposed to you know, it totally lacks the like phasing sound. And of course, when you combine that with the other organ sound, it's a pretty cool sounding organ for just a few kilobytes. I'm pretty chuffed about this trick. I like it quite a bit. There's not a whole lot else happening in the track. It just sounds cool. After that, I pretty much repeat the track, but with a different sample in place of the Leslie. I don't do all the same like tricks, obviously, because it's like this choir sample now. The only trick preserved is doing a tone portamento to, you know, open up the stereo field on it. That's it. None of the other stuff is carried over. And then I repeat the track again without those because it's a pretty long map, and having a space without the without the melodic content is nice when you're like when you're playing a Doom map for like, I don't know, 15 minutes or something like that. The last piece that is like tracker music in game is actually I guess there's one more before the like ending. There is this remix of E1M3 from Doom, but there's literally nothing interesting going on here except for that like offset on this, like, which I already explained earlier. So as for the actual last track, Completionism, it's the biggest of the bunch, clocking in at just over a megabyte. Most of the others are, I would say, averaging around 300 kilobytes. Some of them much smaller. Actually, no. Yeah, averaging around 300 with a couple stepping up to like 500, 600, but mostly around 300K. So this one's big at over a megabyte. And the reason it's big is, and let me actually turn it down because this song's fucking loud as hell. is because aside from like these instrument samples here, like, you know, typically speaking in a tracker file, you store like one shots and you use those. But in this case, like I stored a bunch of like live guitar. So this is just guitar I played. And you can see already this like, I was so hell-bent on optimizing this file because I hated the idea that I would just like, because I wanted to use like vocals and live instruments, that like it was just going to be the huge fucking file, or I had to use like streamed audio or something. So I was really hell-bent on making this as small as possible, all things considered. So I was able to make most of the samples like 8-bit and reasonably low frequency, but you can only push it so low until you like could just start losing the quality of the sound. Like, and I don't just mean like fidelity, I mean like being able to tell what it is, or it like blending clearly with other things. So I pushed these about as low as I can go, and even then, like, there's a lot of trickery going on in terms of like reusing parts over the course. So you can see that I've actually like looped this. These parts used to be like twice as long in the actual piece of music. So like if we listen to the guitar here. Oh, also I play everything one note higher. So they're also, yeah, this is because originally the entire track was slower and one note lower, and I was like, no, I don't like it. And I just sped the whole thing up by pitching everything up and making the BPM faster. But anyways. So yeah, lots of like, whoops. That's just the bass. It's a one shot. The bass isn't recorded because it doesn't really need to be. That's just some feedback. I think one of the most interesting parts of the guitar is that, like, yeah, this part here, I like cycle through pretty much all of the guitar samples throughout. Like reusing stuff from the beginning as well. You know, just trying to get the most mileage possible out of every single sample in there. Because you gotta. At this point, you really gotta. With the lead as well, it's another kind of goofy application, but that's not it. The lead's over here. So it's like, that's a long ass sample, like. So then the next time around, it's like I wanted to use another line, but it's like that would add like almost this entire part again. So instead of adding another line, I just jump back to this, and then I attack the end onto it, like. So yeah, just reusing a huge chunk of what you just heard, although you really don't notice that in the full piece. So then we got the vocals, which are stored at a super, super low frequency. I mean, all things considered, like almost telephone frequency, which is like 8K. And you can see these are compressed to absolute hell, so they can safely be 8-bit. Like super distorted. The main body of it had to be a little higher to maintain like crunchiness, but yeah. And like every part where I could like reuse something or just like cut out any amount of silence, I tried to trim out every little piece I possibly could. Like in the intro here, I reuse the "I need to find the" part, like for the second repeat here. I need to find the reason. I need to find out why. Just like anything like that where I could reuse a piece, recycle it to save on storage, I did that. As a result, it wound up like reasonably sized at just over a megabyte. Still too big for my liking, but hey, what can you do? Then it's just like breaks and like basic sounds like this, which are used for the synths, which are like these things here. Super simple sounds. What's this? That's just the breaks. So over there, it's like we're changing the filter on this goofy kind of like duck synth, which is just that. It's like bytes of data. There is one sound in here. Yeah, this one. This is like, I think it's from Pulse Man. It's just some FM patch or something. Just blown out completely, stored at really low frequency. The great thing about blown out samples like this is if you're using linear sample interpolation or none at all, they immediately get all of their grit back. So, as an example, let me switch over to like a more modern type of sample interpolation, like sync interpolation. Let me actually go to like the instrument for it. Oh, there's no envelopes. Well, whatever. So it's kind of like muffled and shitty sounding, but if you move over to linear, we're starting to get some of that grit from the sample aliasing, the way I like kind of like when a sample aliases, you essentially like get the sample and then it like rotates above itself and then that rotates above itself. It's really fucking weird. But that's what aliasing is. Whenever you like play a sample like slower and it's not interpolated, see, now we're going to get a ton of it. I'm going to turn off interpolation entirely. So that's what all that high-end noise is. It's the sample like mirroring itself up to infinity to fill all that missing space. Generally speaking, people don't like that sound. Almost all of my tracker music is designed without interpolation at all. I think it's a great sound. Time Tripper, though, is designed for linear. So we get a little bit of it, not quite as much. There is some like filtering going on. But yeah, when you have sounds like that, you can just like let loose with them and they sound like friggin' great. It's a good sound, and it's only 34K for a cool, nasty lead. All right, cool, great. Yeah, that's it. That's all of the like main tracks. Yeah, I just thought it might be interesting to somebody somewhere. Maybe, perhaps, maybe you learned a new trick. Maybe you've been doing this for as long as I have, and you're like, what? Who? You don't know anything. And you know what? I respect that. I fucking respect that. But yeah, that's it. That's all. Thanks for checking it out. Thanks for checking out Time Tripper if you have, and if you haven't, that's fine too. I can't tell you what to do, but yeah, that's it. I'll see you later. Take it easy, and love you. Bye.